So let's say you're just living your life. Maybe you're out by the pool, on the street, or in a bar, and a beautiful girl, gorgeous girl, turns around, makes eye contact. What is your next step? It may seem like a trivial thing, but what you do in exactly that moment is going to either make things dramatically easier or dramatically harder. So I'm going to break down for you exactly what to do step by step right now. So the first part of what to do when you make eye contact with a gorgeous girl is actually what not to do. Do not look away sheepishly. This is what almost every guy does, because most likely you were checking her out, right? And she turned and looked and caught you checking her out, and you go, I wasn't looking. Don't do that, okay? A great phrase, one of the earliest catchphrases of the game community was, I make no apologies for my desires as a man. And that is a great philosophy and a great outlook. And it's what you should be feeling in this moment. You're checking out a cute girl, she looks at you, pretend that she's the one checking you out, okay? Or act as if there is absolutely nothing wrong with the fact you're looking in the direction you happen to be looking in. Because there isn't. Okay, it's completely fine. And actually, I want to suggest an exercise to you. This is actually one of the best exercises you can do if you're nervous around girls in general to get yourself more confident. Here's what it is. As you walk through your day-to-day life, try, when you're walking past girls or walking around girls, to actually make eye contact with the girls you walk past. And when you make eye contact, try to hold that eye contact to the point they look away first. Don't be overly, extremely creepy about this to the point that it's a staring contest, but simply don't just immediately look away. Once you're able to hold eye contact without looking away sheepishly, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to do something friendly. Smile, nod your head, smirk, you can even wave, do something. And so you're seeing random girls on the street, you're making eye contact and you're doing something. Now, most of the time what they're gonna do is they're actually gonna break eye contact. And that's actually completely fine for the purposes of this exercise. But some of them are going to smile back, wave back at you, nod back, all that kind of stuff. That's when you know you're doing it right. And if you wanted to in these cases, when they do acknowledge you back, you could actually go approach them. That's not even the purpose of the exercise. That's not even why I'm having you do it. But when they start to give you positive receptivity, that means you're doing it right. And that ability to hold eye contact without flinching, that ability to, in that moment, instead of being like, oh God, I got caught, think, this is an opportunity to be friendly, is a huge transition in your game, and it's so simple to practice. So now you've made and held eye contact like a man who actually believes in himself and is a little bit entitled, and you've done something that indicates some familiarity. You've smiled or nodded your head or waved or something along those lines. The next thing you're gonna have to do is actually start the conversation. And I'll give you some lines for that in a second. It's actually a lot easier than you might think. But before I do that, I wanna talk about attitude and vibe. In this scenario where we've made eye contact, one of the best vibes and attitudes you can have is what I call the hello old friend vibe. Basically, you talk to her as though she's someone you knew from way back or someone who you do know currently but you didn't expect to see right now. All right, it's like, oh, my old friend, what a random circumstance that I met you, but I'm happy, this is cool, and it's completely normal for me to start a conversation. And in fact, the fact that you made eye contact and had that moment sort of justifies that there might be that familiarity. So the vibe you want to have in a lot of these cases is that, oh, hello old friends, right? You have that familiarity. In fact, you'll know you're doing it right if sometimes when you go up and say hi or say a neutral type of opener, she says, do I know you from somewhere, or where do I know you from, right? If she has that vibe that you probably know her from somewhere, that means you're doing all these things right. One final thing before I get into specific lines to say. There are basically two scenarios where you will have made eye contact with a girl, and the distinction comes down to distance and urgency. So let's say you make eye contact with a girl on the street as she's walking by you. You're close to her and there's some urgency because if you don't do something right then and there, she's gonna be past you. Or let's say you're walking through a crowded club and she's passing by you and you're gonna open off eye contact. You need to do it right in that second, right in that moment. On the other hand, let's say you're in a bar or a restaurant and she's 20 feet away from you at a table, you're at another table, you make eye contact. In that case, you're gonna say, wave or say hi or nod your head, but then you can pause for a second after she looks away and go approach her anytime in the next minute or two. It'll be completely fine. Usually sooner is still much better than later. I would say within the next 30 seconds to a minute is ideal, but it doesn't have to be right that next second. And the reason again for this goes along with that hello old friend vibe. If you saw an old friend out and you're walking by on the street and you made eye contact, you would stop. Oh, hey, excuse me. Hey, what's up? Funny seeing you. And you would do something right then and there because that's the only opportunity you have. Whereas if you saw an old friend at a restaurant, you might nod and wave at them, continue your conversation, and then go over and join them 30 seconds or a minute, or with a really good friend where you're really confident, maybe even 5 minutes later, it would be totally fine, okay? So the fact that you can have that gap, it's still a reflection of this idea of familiarity. Hello, old friend, I'm just a social person. Now, when you actually do say something, in those urgent situations, the easiest thing to say is gonna be, hi, hey, excuse me, something like that as your first thing, something that gets attention, something that is a clear greeting. Oftentimes that may be enough because you made eye contact, you said hi, she may say hi back, and she may just expect a conversation. Now, she's probably not gonna carry the conversation. From there, you're gonna need to take it the next step. Next step could be introducing yourself. Next step could be saying, I couldn't help but notice you. Next step, if you happen to have a canned opener that you use a lot, like you have an opinion opener you like to use, or a go-to opener, say your go-to opener at this point. So something like, hey, I couldn't help but notice you, and then continue with a comment. Or, whoa, hey, don't give me that look. Or maybe, hey, excuse me, can I ask your opinion on something? Something like that in the moment to get her attention and get her engaged in a conversation with you is gonna be very, very useful. In the scenario where you see her from a distance, you say something and you're gonna approach a little bit later, now you actually walked over and approached. So some of these like, hey, don't give me that look, doesn't really make sense, for example. But you could still just go over and say hi and introduce yourself, especially if the eye contact, if she lingered on the eye contact and it was clear she noticed, then you could just go over and say hi and introduce yourself. That would still work. Hi, can I ask your opinion on something? Would still work, although in this case, the opinion opener might not make as much sense because the point of an opinion opener is that the approach is completely random, whereas when you've already made eye contact, the approach is less random. You'll still probably get away with it just fine, but it actually is a little less congruent than it would be if it weren't off eye contact. Another category of approach you can do, though, when you've made eye contact and there was that lingering eye contact, is you can walk over and actually be like, hey, excuse me, I noticed you before. I can't help but think, do we know each other from somewhere? Or where have I seen you before? That actually can work in the same way that it's very natural when you do this right, the girl will actually think she's seen you before sometimes. It's very plausible that you think the same thing about her. Now, again, this isn't gonna work just by itself because most of the time the answer is gonna be no, I don't think so, or no, I can't recall, or something like that. So then you're gonna have to carry it through and be like, oh, that's fine. You're quite cute though. What's your name? Or who are you? Or, oh, that's so funny. Well, anyway, I'm Todd. And then continue, right? So you are going to have to go another step. You cannot expect that, hey, have I seen you from somewhere before, to carry the conversation for you. That's absolutely not going to be enough. It's just a starter. There's also a kind of a cocky opener you can try if you'd like to. It's a little bit playful. It is a little cheesy, but it is pretty effective in this scenario. I actually stole this from a movie, but it does work in real life. Say, hey, excuse me, I noticed you noticing me, and I just wanted to put you on notice that I noticed you too, right? It's kind of clever, it's kind of cocky. It could work. You could also, without being quite so cheesy, just point out that she knows, hey, excuse me, I saw you looking over. I thought, I was wondering if we knew each other from somewhere. So in that case, you're doing a combination of, I noticed you noticing me, and do I know you from somewhere? And again, you will have to follow it up with introducing yourself and running a normal set, doing a normal approach afterwards. But it's much more spontaneous, much more casual, much more in the moment than a normal non-eye contact approach would be. So to summarize, when a girl makes eye contact with you, this is not a terrible thing that you need to turn away from and hide the fact that you were checking her out. It's okay that you were checking her out. Hold her gaze, be confident, make a friendly gesture of some kind. Her eye contact is a gift. It's going to make an approach easier and more spontaneous and more natural. It's going to make it seem like it just happened more than it would have had you not had that eye contact. And in fact, a lot of guys who are not very good at cold approach, this is their strategy. A lot of guys who are relatively attractive, relatively okay at talking to girls, but terrified to do a cold approach, what they will do, they will get drunk, walk around a bar, and just try and make eye contact with girls throughout the night. And when they do get eye contact, they'll try and just say hi and hope. And you know what? It actually kind of works. But we don't want to be reliant on eye contact. We're better than that, okay? Please do not be that person that can only approach if you get eye contact, because if that's the case, you're only going to be able to do a few approaches per night. You're going to miss a lot of opportunities. You're going to miss that hot girl in the corner that is not facing towards you. Whereas if you know how to do a real approach, walk up in front of her and say, hey, excuse me, tap her on the shoulder, just be willing to just admit you walked over and wanted to meet her. If you're man enough to do that, you're going to have tremendously more opportunities. And you do not need eye contact to do a good approach. However, when you happen to get it, it is a blessing. It makes it more spontaneous. It makes it more, it just happened. So it's an absolute gift. Make the most of it, but do not be reliant on it.